All right, welcome back to the Flipping Junkie Podcast. I'm really excited today. I've got a good friend, Matt Recore, on the podcast. How you doing?
Doing great, Danny. How are you?
Doing great. And I've known Matt for a while. We've known of each other for a while. This is the first time we've kind of spoken, on video and stuff, and kind of met each other here, but for years now. And I remember I was reading Hal Elrod's Miracle Morning book, and he had talked about this guy, his friend that was in the shower yelling affirmations, and he said he was a real estate investor, I think is what he mentioned, or he just mentioned your name, and I said, that name seems so familiar. And I think I maybe got him to my Gmail, and I just typed the name, and then I saw emails from you, like we had communicated a little bit. And I was like, oh, I know him. That's so cool. So I think I sent you a message or something and just said, hey, I just read about your thing in his book there. I thought it was really cool. But you were instrumental in helping me to be able to have Hal Elrod on the podcast, which I'm truly grateful for.
Oh, thanks.
And super excited to have you on today to speak about something that not many people at all are doing. And I think it's an incredible strategy, and can't wait to have you talk about it.
Okay, great. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So let's start though with your background. Let's find out a little bit about, what got you interested in real estate, and, take us through like your getting started to where you are now.
Okay. I was working in the tech industry for several years and knew that it wasn't what I wanted to do. And I started investing in 2002 here in Northern California. And I started in the pre-foreclosure world. And that's not the most fun world to start, but that's where I started, and did a few deals that way. And then
were you started doing working short sales?
No, I was buying prior to the houses going to auction. There's about a 3.5 month foreclosure process here. And so I was talking to the homeowner who was behind on their payments in that pre-foreclosure phase, and negotiating a deal with them prior to the house going to sale. And so it's not the best. It's not the most fun way to buy houses. You're dealing with people who are in a really challenging part in their life. And it was great and not so great way to be introduced to investing too, because it's a really emotional time. So you're really helping a person through that time. And a lot of times they can't see that they need help, right? They're putting all these barriers up to protect themselves from people taking advantage of them, or from situations that are going on in their life. And they're just trying to sort through everything. And, you have to really build a lot of trust and really look out for people and help break through those and show them that you're doing that. So it's a really challenging way, but that's the way I learned first on how to invest. So did a few deals that way. And, actually, it was very fulfilling and rewarding doing that, but it was really challenging. And the market really started to heat up. And in 2004, 2005, I started to get really, really scared about the market here in California. And I went to a couple different seminars by a guy by the name of Bruce Norris. And he was talking about how we were peaking. So I got really scared, and I sold everything. I sold all the rentals that I'd accumulated. I sold, I stopped flipping, and I left the technology industry and then got back in. I also went to Texas and started buying a bunch in Dallas, Texas. Bought like 13 rentals.
What was the year that you were selling everything off?
Late 04 and early 05.
Oh, wow. So did you feel like maybe you jumped the gun and made a bad decision, because there was still probably another year or so right before it started, a year or two?
Our peak here in Sacramento was August of 2005.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Our peak in price. So I was about 6 months early.
But still, man, that's awesome. That
6 months early is better than 6 months late. That's for sure. Because once that inventory starts to swell, and if you have a 2-1, or a 1-1 or something like that, at that time, it is tough to move, and you have to cut the price.
Well, once you start feeling that feeling that you got again, please let me know, right?
Okay.
Send me a message, because you made a good call then. I think I'm going to trust your call on this one.
It turned out to be a great call. Yeah, it turned out to be a great call. And I got back into the tech world for several years and then got back into full-time investing in 2012 in California. And I definitely averted all those challenging, those challenging situations in '06, '07, '08. But, actually, I wholesaled some stuff in '06, which actually turned out to be great. But I bought about 13 houses in Texas, and I got a little over leveraged there. And being a remote property landlord isn't as easy as some people may say it is. So I scaled some of those back and got back into full-time investing, and then started implementing the strategies that we'll talk about today in 2013 and 14 to accumulate more rentals in California in a very safe way.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's just get right into that, because I'm sure people are wondering, what is this strategy that they're talking about? And if you're watching the video on the YouTube channel on flippingjunkie.com/YouTube, I'm sorry, youtube.com/flippingjunkie, he's got the book there that he's written behind him there. And you want to say what the title is?
The title is How to Purchase Real Estate at 0% Interest. And actually, the subtitle is To Help Sellers Get What They Want and to Accumulate Paid Off Houses Faster. And this is a strategy that I first learned, I think, in '04 or '05. But I was so scared about the market that I had no motivation to implement it. I did not want to rent in California at the time. I was really scared. And fear just overwhelmed me. But what I didn't know is if I would have started it then too, I would have had the house would have been paid off by now in 2018. So it wouldn't matter what the ebbs and the flows were. But fear definitely stopped me, and fear prevented me from implementing the strategy. But I started implementing it in 2014 or so. It was when I think I made my first 0% offer. And within 6 months of making my first offer, I got my first deal, and then got my second deal and third deal and fourth deal. And now I've had like 6 deals. And so I decided to teach it because there's no one who's teaching how to buy at 0% interest.
Yeah, I hear the low money down or the no money down, all that kind of stuff. But go ahead and let's walk through it. Let's walk through the steps and then talk about the benefits to it. Obviously, there's a ton of benefits.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just get right into it.
Yeah, sure. So there's benefits actually to the seller, and there's benefits, of course, to the buyer. And let's talk first about the benefits to the buyer. You buying at 0% interest, every bit of the payment that you're making to that seller is going towards paying down the principal over time. So on a traditional 30-year mortgage, when it's amortized out, the first several payments, first really 15 years, you're paying much more to interest. Whereas when you do a principal-only loan, everything's going to principal, and you're really building your net worth much, much faster than on a 30-year loan.
If anybody listening out there has never looked at a 30-year amortization table, look at it, and you're going to think twice about ever getting a 30-year loan on anything.
Yes. So a 15-year loan is much better, much, much better. You really start to see the benefits in year 5 or year 6 of that principal pay down. But when you get a loan that's amortized over 20 years, that's principal only, you're getting benefits on day one, big benefits of principal pay down. So you're really exploding your net worth, and you're putting yourself into a much, much, much better total net worth situation than just accumulating a lot of 30-year amortization mortgages. And my goal is to not have too many things, too many properties that have balloons on them, like with commercial real estate and things like that. So I'd much rather have a lot of single-family homes that have 0% interest mortgages than a couple of multifamilies that have a balloon in 10 years, that who knows what the market's gonna be like in 10 years, right? Yeah. So there's also benefits to the seller, which I've gotten good at selling, and my team has gotten good at selling those benefits too, in that in California especially, we've got a big capital gains tax here that sellers who are sitting on a lot of equity in their property and they're thinking about selling, they're going to be hit with a 13.3% capital gains tax here in state taxes, not just federal. So federal, depending on the brackets, 20, 25, depending on where that bracket is. So we're really selling the benefits of avoiding capital gains taxes by selling with an installment sale, right? And so we're making this 0% interest only offer and selling the benefits. And we've had a lot of sellers who said yes. And it's amazing how many sellers don't want to pay the IRS at all. They want to find the strategy besides the 1031. And 1031 is a great strategy, but it involves them having to go find another property, right? They have to go and
they don't want to deal with it.
Select another property and then close on it, and then maybe arrange the financing for that whole process too. And if they don't have to do that, and they can have their loan sitting on a property they know really well because they've owned it for 20 years, they know the ins and outs of it, and they can just have it sitting there, and they can collect more in money coming in than they were getting in rent, and net more, and avoid paying the government anything. It's like a dream come true. So awesome. I've had a lot of sellers who've said yes.
Yeah, and a lot of times people don't need all of that money right away anyway, right? They'd rather say, hey, I'm going to, for this many years, be getting these paychecks. And how cool is that? Even if it totals the same amount that you would have just gotten up front. I don't know. There's just something in my mind about loving those payments, whether, obviously I want interest on mine, but
right.
But just getting payments is just something a lot of people really love getting because they don't, they have to work at a job typically to get. Right.
Yes. We had one seller that was sitting on a lot of equity, and she was looking to map out her retirement, and she was calculating what she was going to be getting in Social Security when she started to draw that. And with our offer and what we are going to be providing her on a principal only payment, she was like, wow, I can wait to draw Social Security from now 65 when I'm thinking about drawing it. And because of your payments you're going to give me that are more than rent, I'm going to wait until 68, wait till 69 to start drawing Social Security because my total amount is going to be greater because I'm now getting your payment. So we've had sellers that have, bettered their situation in lots of ways because they took our 0% offer.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah.
So what are the steps in doing that? How are you getting this to work out?
Well, we're introducing it as a concept to them for sure. We're doing it in a way that we're definitely not just blasting it out there to every particular seller on MLS, making 0% offers to everyone on MLS. They're all going to laugh at you, and every agent's going to laugh at you, right? But we are doing it with sellers that have equity in their property, or sellers that want top dollar for their property, or that have the property that's paid off. We're approaching them with principal only payments so they can get what they want. They have a number in mind that they want. And we say, okay, Mr. Seller, you want this number. Well, here's how we can meet that number. We can meet that number by doing it this way. And some say yes, some say no, but we've had a lot that said yes.
So explain that, right? Because I think the question going through many people's minds is, so you're saying with your way you analyze deals and what you can pay for them if you're paying cash or you aren't getting the seller carryback, that you can pay more if you have them give you the 0%. And so explain why you're willing to do that.
Okay. And I break this down really, really well in the book, or I do as best I can to break it down in the book. So with a cash deal, you're going to have, unless you truly are paying, if you truly are paying cash, your costs are less than if you're borrowing, right? You're probably borrowing with some private money or some hard money lender. A lot of big investors are doing it that way. So there's the price that you can pay that's lower than what you could pay as if you kept it as a rental and you didn't have to evict the tenant, and you didn't have to put all the money in right away on the fix up, right? You can kind of keep the tenant in place and limp along and not make the house beautiful. So because of that, you're able to pay a little bit more because you're going to have not all those big expenses that you would have if you did a top-notch remodel. So because of that, you can pay a little bit more than you would on your cash offer, because with your cash offer, you have to factor in that you have to make that house top notch. So on a house you're going to keep as a rental, you don't need to factor in making it a top notch property. So you can pay a little bit more, but they can carry back financing, and you can keep it as a rental and have it limp along as a rental, making the marginal updates that are needed to make the house livable for them. But you don't need to, for example, put in granite countertops on day one, right when you close. Whereas if you're flipping it, you do have to do that. So you have to factor that in. You don't have to factor that in on a 0% deal. So you're able to pay more. And plus with the principal pay down, you're able to pay more because within 2 years, you're going to be in a pretty nice equity position because of the principal pay down just 2 years later, not even assuming there's been any appreciation in your market. So I've done this in a very hot, high price market in Northern California, in some really nice suburbs, some A and B neighborhoods where the house values were around $500,000. I got a 0% deal on a $500K house. And one at $300K, the other at around $400K. So these are really nice high-end neighborhoods too. But if you're in an area that isn't as competitive and highly priced, this will also work great, like in the Midwest or certain parts of the East Coast. I think I've done it in a very, very tough market. So it shows and improves that it can be done in a lot of other markets.
Yeah, nice. So when you say that you got some of those deals, so like 400, 500K, did you have any kind of down payment? Did you have any kind of payment that you made, or was it just strictly they didn't owe anything? Like, how do you structure those things when they owe something?
Yeah. So there's a couple answers to that. There's one seller who wanted as little down as possible because he didn't want to give that money to the government, right? Because that $10,000 down payment, he could be taxed on that. So he didn't want to have much of anything down. But he, in his case, he went ahead and said yes to 10. I had another seller who wanted 60K down in order to get their 0% interest deal. But I was buying that at a pretty substantial discount. I was buying that at like 85%. And then he wanted 60K down. And I just so happened to have the money for that at the time. Or I made sure I had the money because, and this is part of the 0% interest deal, is when you get a seller that says yes to 0% interest, even if they want a pretty substantial down payment, you want to find a way to either do that deal or partner with someone to do that deal, because the benefits accrue in a greater and greater way, in year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, to very soon you have a paid off property. So we've had sellers that have said yes, that have had the property paid off. We've also had sellers that have said yes to where they carried back a second at 0%. So we, as an example, got a first mortgage from like a rental lender, and there's lots of different rental lenders that are out there. For me, there's one local in my market, and then there's the Norris Group, which is all of California. And then in Texas, I'm sure there's others that will lend you around 8% interest, right? 7 to 8% interest in certain terms. That it's more of a rental type program that they have. And I use them for the first. And then for the second, I had the seller carry back at 0% interest. And we've had a few that have said yes to that.
Nice. Yeah. And this the pay down and the power of that. And you're saying like, you're going to have this thing paid off so much faster because you're not paying all of that crazy amount of interest. And there's cases where like, if it's like $80,000 loan amortized over 30 years at like 10% or like 11%, you're talking about like over 200 something $1,000 in interest, I think.
Right.
And most of that is paid on the front part of it. The first year is not spread evenly.
Yes.
And so you're talking about immediately, like every payment that goes in is knocking down and giving you the equity.
Yes. And what's great about that is two things. You're not paying taxes on that equity pay down. So it's a forced savings account is what it ends up being. It's a savings account that you're building and you're accruing that you actually don't even have access to unless you tap it with like a future second or a future equity line. But it's a savings account. and it's a net worth benefit that you're not taxed on. So between all my 0% interest mortgages and my seller financing mortgages, I've accumulated a pretty big principal pay down every year that the rents kind of offset, but you're not paying taxes on that net worth gain. Whereas if you go out and make, an extra 100 grand in the year with your business, you are going to have to pay taxes on that unless you're using some kind of other creative tax deferring or tax avoidance strategy, or increasing your expenses or something like that. Whereas with this principal pay down strategy, you're not paying taxes on that principal pay down, but your net worth is growing.
Yeah, I love this for so many reasons. And the big one is just like, limiting your risk. I mean, I'm just huge about that because things change, markets change, everything. Like, so, the strategy should always be like, how can I build equity as quickly as possible? Not how can I pull out as much money out of this thing as I can.
Right.
It's long-term wealth building. And, and the way you're talking about it's actually fast. It's not like super long-term. It's just delayed. It's not instant. I love it. Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. So go ahead.
I was just going to add to that. There's so many people that come up with all these strategies, but they get away from the basics of really real estate being a means to an end. And the means to the end for me is financial freedom. And there's different ways to have that. But having several paid off houses in A and B neighborhoods that you would move into any one of these houses if your circumstances or situation changed. They're great neighborhoods. And having many of those that are paid off, I mean, that is that's a strategy that's not really talked about as an end game, but that's definitely my end game. And so this 0% strategy actually plays right into that end game.
No, I like it, and I want to do more of that myself, because in San Antonio there is like a lot of the housing market that is on the lower end, and you can get them cheap and sell them for quite a bit more on owner financing. And it's really cool. But more and more as we progress in our business, we would like to do more of that, where you're having having some rentals and stuff like that appreciate more. You have better tenants and all that kind of stuff. So it's a great strategy. But you had mentioned too, we had talked a little bit before this call, and you had talked about, having some of those 0% interest or even the low interest on some of the lower end properties, but being able to take advantage of that with some of the better properties. Do you mind sharing that with on the podcast?
Yeah, I'll give you an example of something I'm doing right now, actually, on that. I bought a condo for $100,000, and the seller carried back 100%. It was actually zero down on this condo, and he agreed to $100,000 over 20 years at 3% interest. So one of the benefits and the side effects of making a 0% offers is sometimes they counter at 2 or 3 or 4% fully amortized.
That's awesome.
And that's a great side effect. So this particular seller, we agreed on 3% interest over 20 years. So I went ahead and said yes to that. But it was on a condo, and condos here are very cyclical. Prices can run up, but when the market crashes, they are not worth much at all. So in this particular case, he carried back great financing on a house that I don't want to keep for a long time. So, and it's in a condo complex I don't really like that much, and it's not that great of a neighborhood. So what I did is I said to the seller, I said, hey, I don't really plan on keeping this condo for a long, long time. I've got another property over here in a great neighborhood, and I'd like to upgrade your financing to a better house in a better neighborhood, and your loan is going to be secured on this better house. I gave him the address. He went and drove by it. He said, I like that house. Yes, great. Let's move your loan over to that house. And then this particular property is going to be paid off for the time being. And we'll keep your financing on that house. And he went ahead and said, great. And so now I have that financing on that great house. I'm going to go ahead and sell that property that's free and clear. And I'm going to take 100% of the proceeds of that. And then, pay down something else. But essentially I took not a great property, but I got great financing with it. And I went and moved it over, and it's better financing than I would have got at a bank or any other place. And you can't get 3% non-owner occupied, 100% financing anywhere, right? But I took that financing and I moved it somewhere else, into a property that's really nice. It's a 3-2 in a really nice neighborhood. So that's another thing. I don't think a lot of investors are thinking creatively in terms of taking good financing and moving it to great properties.
Yeah, it's not even a lot of work, right? I mean, it's not like
escrow did it all. Escrow took care of it.
Yeah.
That's one of the keys of having a great escrow officer, and having them be experienced to be able to move that mortgage over. And then, so I'm in the process of selling that condo, and I'm actually in contract right now, as is at 139. So we're going to make a small profit on the fixing and, the selling of that condo. And then we're going to have all that money to, apply to other deals.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I want to hear more stories about these deals. I mean, do you have, you have any of them that you have in the book, maybe that you can remember to share?
Yeah. Let's see.
Maybe not necessarily just like that one, but any of the 0%.
Okay. Yeah. 0% deal. I can share two. I'll share, they're all shared in the book, all 6 case studies. And what I wanted to do with this book is not make it all, or have very little fluff in it. So there's very little on mindset. There's like a half a page on mindset.
You say mindset is fluff?
Well, I'm not saying mindset is fluff. I'm saying that mindset is amazing, right, but that it can be very fluffy, right? That people you could have 300 pages on mindset and it's all great stuff, but I wanted to have the book be focused on what it's focused on, right? Buy at 0% interest. And I didn't want 50 pages of mindset stuff, right? So what I wanted to do is kind of refer you to some great mindset books, and just have you stay focused on the 0% interest strategy, if since you're there, right? But mindset is huge. It's probably 99% of even doing this, because if you have the wrong mindset, you'll find ways to sabotage yourself from taking action on everything that I'm sharing, right? Mm-hmm. So you got to get that right. But in the book, there's not much on mindset. So there are six case studies or 6 deals that I've done. And one of those was a seller that had, I ended up buying 3 of his houses. And the first one was at 0% interest. And he had a bunch of paid off houses. And he wanted to sell this one he had $490 in mind. I want $490 for this house. It was in a really nice neighborhood here in Folsom, right outside of Sacramento, a really high-end suburb. And he wanted $490, and the after repair value at the time was like $520, $530. So I'm paying like pretty much top dollar for this house. So I said, okay, I can pay $490, but here's the offer. $10,000 down, and the $480 will be paid over 240 months at $2,000 a month. So 240 times 2,000 equals $480,000. Okay. And so, at the time, the rent was, he was only charging $2,100 a month, but with his taxes and insurance, he was netting like 17 or so. Hmm. I was seeing that the market rent was around 24. I could bump the rent up to about 24. And so after my taxes and insurance, I'd be break even. But his situation, he was only netting like 17 a month from this, 16 a month. And so the 2,000 a month was better than he was currently getting, in a net of 16. And he went ahead and said yes. And so we wrote up the deal. That was my first 0% interest deal, and I wanted to close it as fast as possible. I was on escrow every day, like, can we close this? Can we close this? And we closed pretty quick. And I kept the tenant in place. I raised the rent to 24 now, and I'm paying him $2,000 a month. It's a break even for me, but that was done 2 years ago. And now my mortgage balance on that is now in the 420 range.
Nice.
And that house has gone up to be worth around 570, 580.
Wow.
So it's now, now I've got a pretty sizable equity position on that. And next year, let's say it just stays at 580, I'm going to owe less than 400 grand on it 3 years later. And so now we're getting into wholesale territory, right? Like now it's a wholesale deal. I bought it. If I were right now, we're able to buy that house for 390 and it's worth 580. That's an amazing deal in that neighborhood. Right. So that's one of the great things about buying at 0% interest, and no other seller would have, buyer was introducing that to him at the time. Everyone was, that he was talking to.
Too much.
What?
The next one. Yeah. Just look
at too much. He wants retail, too much. Or they would have offered 390 or 400 at the time.
I would have offered probably 300 at 0%.
300,000 cash. You would offer 300,000 cash.
I'm just a low baller. I'm just.
Oh,
being such a
gotcha. Low baller. Yeah. Well, in this market, it's so competitive, and investors are it feels like a lot of the margins have shifted, and it was definitely an owner occupied house. So someone, he could have got a cash offer from an owner occupant in the low fours, at the time easily. So, anyways, that worked for him. And so that was my first deal. And that gave me confidence to start making more offers and to get more aggressive and to go after more. And so shortly thereafter, I got another deal and another deal, and another deal.
Nice. So you said you had bought 3 from him. Were the other ones the same way, or just the one was the 0% and he?
Honestly, after that, he came back to me and he said, Matt, we did 0% on this one. I want a little bit of interest on the next one. I said, okay. And he countered at 3% on the next one. And I said, okay. So we did 3% of the next one. On the next one, though, we did a shorter term at 15 years instead of 20 years. So because of the shorter term, that's going to pay off pretty quick. And 3% interest, it's not really that much. But it is a good amount more than 0%. But I went ahead and said yes to that. And on that one, my negative cash flow at initially was like $300 a month. And I think it's down to about $100 a month now. And I think within about 2 years, it might be to break even. But the mortgage would pay down substantially. Oh, and I also bought that one a little bit bigger of a discount than I did on the 0%. So my counter back to him was, okay, you want 3%. Well, I'm not going to be able to pay as much as I did, as close to retail as I did before. So we agreed on that. And then his next deal, he wanted 4% fully amortized. And I said, I can do that, but it's going to be a little bit bigger of a discount as well on that one. So all total, I think all those deals average out fully amortized at like probably 2.5% interest. And those loans total about $1 million, just those. But it's at a combined blended interest rate of 2.5% fully amortized. So those worked out to be great deals.
No, I like that. I mean, it gets into the creative part of negotiating, right? Like having, like creating things that you can leverage in the negotiation that weren't even there before. Like you just, like you gave yourself something that you can give up that really wasn't giving up a whole lot. I mean, that's really cool. I like that a lot. But,
right. So that was a deal. And then another deal I did, she was getting, the house was pretty, was in pretty bad shape, and it was occupied by a hoarder, and she'd gotten several offers at, in the mid to low twos. So, at around the 240 range, and my cash offer was around 240, and she even got a cash offer that was higher than mine at 250. And I presented a 0% interest offer at 300. And after some back and forth negotiation, we ended up agreeing on, I think, 300 with 10K down. And on that one, it was a 2-1 in a very urban type neighborhood with a 3-car garage. And my plan was to turn that 3-car garage into a 1-bedroom, 1-bath house. So it was currently getting nothing in terms of rent. But after a year of working with the city and the county, I was going to be able to turn that into a 1-1 And I was able to also evict that tenant, make that house, the main house, really nice, and then make the rent top of the market rent. And I've, you know, that house has turned into a huge winner because that 1-1 is now done. It's been approved by the city. We're almost done with that. That'll have a tenant in there that's getting $1,500 a month.
Wow.
The main house, she was only getting about $1,100 a month from. I'll be able to get about $1,600 a month from that house. So between the second unit and the first unit, I'll have over $3,200 a month coming in.
Yeah,
and my payment to her is $2,000 a month, principal only. So in the year that project's been going on, we've already paid down that mortgage now down to the 270 range or so. And now that we're done with that little 2-1 and 1-1, that is worth, well over 500 or 600 now. And so to come back to the point, because I was able to introduce the 0% offer, I was able to get the deal. I wouldn't have gotten the deal on a cash basis. I was beat out by other investors, and the 0% interest deal actually met her needs more than a cash offer did.
That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
What objections do you get from sellers about the 0% interest, and how do you overcome those?
Couple of objections. Let's see. It's more, I've gotten lots of objections, of course, right? Let's be honest. I've gotten a lot of objections, and we have gotten a lot of objections. But I think part of it is not allowing their rejections to phase you, okay? And to take them personally. Because some people can be very, very harsh in their objections and start to attack you personally, or start to say, no, how dare you offer me a 0% interest? What do you, no way.
I want 1%.
Yeah. Or, sometimes they counter, right? But sometimes people can be aggressive in their no's, and that's okay. Cause sometimes that aggressive no has nothing to do with you. It has something to do with them, and something else is going on in their life, especially if they're aggressive with a no. So, having compassion and sympathy for them and where they're at, if they get aggressive with a no, it's most likely not about you. So, but the true objections, here are some of those. And I cover these in the book and ways to get around those. The true objections are, I do want to get some interest. I want to get some interest income. I've got this equity sitting here. I want some interest income. And then the objection is, how much interest income do you need? What do you need, and what interest rate makes sense for you? And so that's where the counter has come into a 3 or 4% fully amortized option, or a 3 or 4% interest only option, with a long-term balloon. I like to have 15-year balloons, or 10 or 15-year balloons. So then you can have a nice cash flow there. And then buy it at such a discount that you're still okay. So it's really listening to what's going on with them, and then counting back to see what would meet their needs. And that's really what seller financing is. You've got a blank sheet of paper in front of you, right? And so it's sitting down with them and saying, what do you need here? And what do you want? What do you need? And let's see if we can figure out a way to make this work. The other thing that investors may say is, there's this thing called imputed interest that the government will put on this loan. They'll assume that they won't allow this loan to show up on my books as a 0% interest loan. They're going to impute some interest, and they're going to say that the rate is really 2.5%. And well, I didn't receive that interest income. They're going to say that I did. So the counter to that is, okay, well, let's just increase the monthly payment so that imputed interest that you're going to be taxed on still can make sense for you. So I've had to do that once or twice. Yeah. So those are some of them. Can you think of any that if I were to offer you 0% that you would share, or you'd say?
I want to make interest. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, it's just, but I think it's like you said, though, I think you covered sort of the whole gamut of what is possible by addressing the fact that it's really about what the person is looking to do. What are they trying to achieve, and it's really about crafting something. So no matter what the objection is, it's not about you and it's not how you made the offer. It's really about them trying to achieve just what they're trying to do. Like
Right.
what they want out of the deal. And if it's, I need money to buy a business, or I need money to do this or that, it's probably not going to work, right?
Right.
Or offers, so like, how much do you need? Maybe they don't need the whole amount. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that covers everything. So I think that was a brilliant answer. It was good.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. Every situation is different. Every seller is different, and time and circumstances can change every seller's situation. And just keeping rapport and looking to meet their needs, whatever those are, and letting them share those with you. And then, my team does a great job of gathering those needs. And then we look to craft offers that meet their needs and meet our needs too. I mean, we can't put ourselves in a negative situation. Ultimately.
Right. Now, this has been great, super helpful information.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get that book. I haven't gotten it yet, but I'm going to definitely get that book. And how can everybody else out there that wants to get a hold of that book, and I'm sure most of you guys listening right now want this, where can they go to get this?
It's on Amazon, so they can get it via Kindle or paperback. Just search for How to Purchase Real Estate at 0% Interest, or my name, Matthew Recore, and the book should show up.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And if anybody wants to reach out to you, is there a way for them to do that? Where's the best place to get a hold of you?
Good question. They can go to realestatebuyingmachine.com. That is where I teach a little bit deeper on a one-on-one basis with investors who want to implement this in their market. Now, I don't necessarily teach just strategy or go into the depths of how I apply it to other investors in my market. So you'd have to be outside of Northern California, and then I can go deep with you, and we can really help you to implement this in your market.
Yeah, I'm sure that's super valuable coaching. So what was the name of the website again?
Realestatebuyingmachine.com.
Realestatebuyingmachine.com.
Yep.
And we'll put that in the show notes as well, so that
okay.
If you guys are driving and don't have a way to remember that, we'll put that on there. And thanks again for sharing everything today with us.
Yeah, thank you, Danny. Great to connect with you.
Yeah, same here. So, all right, we'll have a great afternoon, and talk to you soon.
Okay, thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.